Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Awesome. Okay. I was just getting ready to invite people. I wasn't sure if I had done everything right. So, how are you?
Yeah, I'm Kevin.
Kevin, great. Great. Nice to meet you, Kevin. I'm Chris. Can you see me all right?
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. A couple people having some problems here. Kevin's on. Ashley, are you on? Hello? I can't hear you, Ashley. All right. Well, I don't know. We will wait and see. Oh, Ashley, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. There you are. Very good. I'm Chris. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And who all can you see now? Can you see Kevin?
I can see Kevin.
Okay. Because I don't know where Kevin went to.
Really?
Yeah, there. Oh, okay. It only pops up when you talk, I guess.
That's interesting.
So it must be a setting that I have.
Could be.
Yeah, I'll have to kind of take a note of that. See what the word
I think
is here.
if you go full screen, I think sometimes that changes it.
Ah, there we go. I just hit the little square there, and that did it. So, all right. Well, we'll keep waiting a little bit longer. Are you able to see the slides?
I am.
You are.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
see.
Okay. And how's that showing up on your screen? Does it show up as a complete? Is it in relationship to the videos or the pictures you're seeing? Where's the slide fit in your desktop?
It's in the center of my screen.
Okay. Is it like taking up the whole screen, or is it just a part of it?
It's most of it, and then the chat is on the pictures are on the side.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me see. Try that. Is that better?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah, that
okay.
looks good.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what was going to happen if I did that, if I was going to lose everybody's video. So.
No, because now the larger boulder stuff is really easy to see, and the others I was kind of squinting a little bit.
How about that? Is that easy to see?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, good. I'll flip through a couple here. You can read that though?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. Oh, I hear somebody. Hello, how you doing?
This is my little bravery.
All right, very nice. Unmute.
Ooh, good thing I hopped in here. I thought it was a different time zone.
Oh,
I thought it was 6:30. It's 5:30. Okay.
oh, where are you at?
I'm in Texas.
Oh, okay. And you are?
Dawn, Camp
Dawn.
L.
Okay. All right. And Corey's on now, right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Got you loud and clear. Can see you loud and clear. Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll wait just a few more minutes before we get going here. How y'all doing today?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What, just briefly, what kind of things have brought you to this class? How many of you are in the counseling program? Anybody?
I want to be. I haven't switched over yet, but I want to change to the
Okay. To the
program.
the BACC. Okay.
Yes.
And who, Dawn, what are you? What do you want to?
I've been talking to Ron for a while about it. I'm not sure that they've actually launched that program yet, have they?
Yeah, well, it'll start up this fall.
Yeah, so I too have been just kind of
Okay.
filling the void in different areas.
Great.
So we can switch over into the new curriculum.
All right. Well, very good. Very good. I'm looking forward to that. So, it's just getting off the ground. So we've been doing a lot of work to get different things rolling and different courses outlined and the syllabi written, and there's quite a bit that goes into it. So there's somebody.
That was me again. I'm switching from my iPad to my desktop.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Very good. Very good.
So if I pop off for a second, I'll get back on as soon as I can.
No problem. I'm just going to scoot this up here.
I'm in a kitchen. Y'all may hear kids running around cooking. Sorry.
Not a problem.
I came in a little and I thought it was 6:30. I was just logging on early, but
Not a problem.
I'm in the right time zone, but we have a lot of people running around eating in this house.
Not a problem. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. So, well, let's go ahead and get started then. I think we're recording this. I feel pretty confident about that. I got the red blinking light. So, my name is Chris, and I am will be the instructor for this course. I'm here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I'm the head of the starting Bachelor of Arts in Christian Counseling program. Professionally, I am a marriage and family therapist. Been licensed for some time now. I am an approved supervisor with the AAMFT, which is the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. And I also do EMDR training and consulting. So I do a lot of trauma-focused work with clients. And I started and own a group practice here in Fayetteville called Thrive Counseling. Thrive Counseling and Consulting. And we started back in 2014, and now we are somewhere around 24, 25 therapists and another 5 folks who kind of run behind the scenes and do all the bookkeeping and the scheduling and all the other folks that it takes to run a practice. So I love doing what I do. I like coming to work every day. It's a challenge sometimes with on the professional side with all the details of business. And I'm gone a lot doing training as well. So you may see me sometimes from a hotel room somewhere in the southeast of the United States. So we'll see how that all works out over time, but really looking forward to this. I'm married, been married for 30 some years to my bride, and we have 5 kids. The youngest and just graduated Saturday from college. So we're on the back end of family life. Yeah, no kidding. One more to go, but we're getting there. And then in 2 weeks, she gets married. So kind of a double checkbook whammy here. So
keep working.
I will be. What's that?
Keep working.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I got one. Yeah, one more year to go. One more year to go. So, if you want, just take a couple quick minutes and introduce yourself. Just where you're at, what you're looking to do with the program at GCD, and where you're at in that. So, go ahead, Kevin. You want to go first?
Yeah, my name's Kevin Donofrio. I live in California, and I have been going to GCD since right now.
Awesome.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I just felt like God's been showing up a lot over the last couple of months. And
Cool.
I keep hearing from different sources to either step up or to step out in faith or both.
Yeah.
And somehow that led me to applying to Grace. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I think that's going.
Right.
But I come from a history of really bad depression and a lot of issues associated with that. And as I've been growing in Christ and I've been healing and getting stronger, I feel like I need to be somewhere walking alongside people who are in the same struggles that I've had.
Okay. Yeah,
and I
sure.
Don't know what form that's going to take yet.
Okay. Awesome. Very good. Ashley, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I am here in North Carolina as well. I'm a couple of hours from Fayetteville in Hildebrand, North Carolina.
Okay.
And this is my first semester, first class.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
So I actually graduate on Saturday with my associate's degree at the community college, a local community college. And so I was just praying about what was next and felt like as I was praying, I literally heard Grace Bible College. And so I Googled it, and GCD came up, and it's just been wonderful.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, I'm excited. Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll set a good standard for you with your first course. So, Dawn, how about you?
Well, first let me say I'm so excited to watch both of your journeys, because I stepped out in faith 2 years ago, and hang on, it's going to be an amazing ride.
Awesome.
Let it evolve you, because I've changed my mind 10 times, but every one of them has been amazing. So, and the way that it will weave together in the most amazing web will open your eyes in bigger ways than you can ever imagine. So
great.
Things that I never knew were correlated through philosophy and theology and church history, and it's mind-boggling. You will forever be entertained. So good
awesome.
luck to you. So
well, very good. Very good.
I'm in Katy, Texas. I moved here about 2 years ago. I have a little bit of a history in owning a school and curriculum writing and being a prior teacher. Also heard a calling very late in life. Worked in world missions for a while. Figured out that after going through a divorce that I wasn't going to be able to stay in world missions, and it was a divorce that was not what I ever thought in a million years was going to happen. So I am a survivor of many things and a mother of 4.
Very good.
Sole custody, and I never in a million years have taught finance in the church for a while. So background in education, finance, never thought the Lord was going to have me headed into counseling. And I think on the other side of this divorce now, I'm probably headed into marriage and family counseling, but I have a strong passion for youth education, and I don't know where that's going to take me either. So I'm really looking forward to this class and picking your brain a little bit and finding out how to take this under licensure to have private practice. So
all right.
Encouragement there.
Well, awesome. Well, hopefully this will give you some of those ideas and kind of see where it takes you. So awesome.
Yeah,
great. Thanks for sharing. Corey, what do you got?
Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold.
That's all right.
So my story is a little different. This is actually my last semester at GCD. I'll be with a bachelor's in divinity, and I will be ordained as a pastor in September. And that's obviously, that calling has come to me a little later than I anticipated. And so the purpose for this class it is more of a pastoral counseling role. Obviously, desiring to shepherd people and help people, just understanding my role and my opportunity that I have in that. So pastoral counseling is kind of my interest in this class in particular.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Very good. Well, let me pray for us, and then we'll get rolling here with everything we need to start talking about tonight. So, Heavenly Father, I'm so grateful for these people, God, for the call that you've put in their hearts. God, I ask that you would have your way with us throughout this course, that you would speak to us through the things we talk about and the challenges we face. God, give us a vision for what you might want for us out of this class. We commit this to you. We pray for those who couldn't make it tonight. We just pray for all the details of the technology that sometimes can get the better of us. And thank you, God, for loving us, for dying on the cross for our sin. And use us, God, to be your agents and your ambassadors in this world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Awesome. All right. A couple of things, just confidentiality-wise, you'll have the opportunity at times to hopefully do an interview with someone of your choice, and we'll want you to try to record that. And that will be one of your assignments, is to kind of reflect on that process. We're not looking for counseling per se. What we're looking for is just the opportunity to talk with someone and listen as to how they share why their faith or non-faith is important to them. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a believer. It can be anyone, and just invites you to be thinking about who that person might be. It could be a spouse. It could be a child. It really doesn't matter. What I'm looking for there when we get to it is about 15 minutes of audio. And you'll have some ideas about how that could flow later in the class as we go through the 8 weeks. And so we'll give you a pretty good idea of what that can look like. So So just to overview the course, this is a general intro course to Christian counseling. So we're going to have an overview of just current trends in counseling theory and practice. We'll talk about some of those different things, the application of it to public and private and church settings. Some of you may want to work in a church setting at some point as a counselor. I don't know. As a pastor, say for Corey, just the impact of being able to have a good set of counseling skills is invaluable as a pastor. And then to have that from a theological standpoint is really important as well. So we need you to understand and demonstrate some basic counseling skills in the form of those video, or should say audio recorded competencies to progress through this. And we'll talk about some of that as we move through. Different counseling techniques, therapeutic skills that are important, but they don't replace us as the counselor. And that's something important to remember if you're ever going to do any type of counseling. Is one of the most important people in the room is you, along with Christ and your client or clients. So a lot of emphasis on how you will impact what you do in a session to facilitate change. And it's really taught mostly from a client-focused, strength-based model, using client feedback in each session. So those are the things we want to kind of strive for. And again, this is a very basic entry level. So we're not looking to be fully licensed therapists in this, but to give you a taste of what it might begin to look like if you ever go in that direction. What does it mean when maybe you send somebody to get therapy at another place? So these are the objectives and things that we'll cover. Demonstrate a fundamental understanding of the professional identity of a Christian counselor. Demonstrate fundamental interviewing and counseling skills necessary for a good therapeutic relationship. Demonstrate a working knowledge of the variety of counseling disciplines and specialty areas. LMFTs, LPCs, community health, private practice. You have social workers, you have psychologists, psychiatrists, you have faith-based folks, you have pastoral counseling. There's all kinds of varieties of counseling that's available. I personally market myself as a therapist who is a Christian. We do not advertise ourselves as Christian therapist in my practice. So what we have found, and the intentionality of that was to be able to be a drawing card, as it were, into the community in which we work here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So we get quite a few people who don't come from a faith perspective, and that creates and opens doors of possibility to share faith with them. And that's an important component of what I hope to do from a business model in working with people in general. So we also want you to demonstrate a growing knowledge and application of using Scripture for self-counsel. So as we go through this, I want you to begin to identify what Scriptures might apply to the different situations and the things that we talk about. We're going to explore reasons for even becoming a Christian counselor or not. And it's okay if it's a not, too. Trust me, that is fine. We want you to demonstrate a basic understanding of conceptual approaches to counseling and theoretical models, from family systems to cognitive behavioral therapy, just to name a few. There's tons out there. There's probably 18 to 20 main modalities or approaches to counseling. So the list grows every year. So we'll hit the main ones and talk about those. We do have limited time. We have 6 sessions like this, so that's only about 9 or 10 hours total for us to cover all these things. So the pace will be quick. How many have done a short-term 8-week class before? I know 2 of you have not. Some of you have? Okay. Yeah, so the pace is pretty quick. You'll have to be on top of your game and stay up on things. You'll have assignments that are due next week. So have you had a chance to read over the syllabus at all? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, good. All right. Yeah, it's pretty well laid out there, I think. Now, this is my first time teaching this course in an 8-week version, though. So there may be a few hiccups in there. And if you run into a problem or something doesn't make sense, just shoot me an email and let me know, hey, this isn't matching up quite right, or there's some hiccup somewhere in the scheduling, and we'll work that out. So, all right. So these are your different books that you will need. Obviously, the Bible. How many have been able to get these 2 books? Everybody have them?
Mine are delayed, but they're being delivered. I get one tomorrow and then the following one on Friday, but I promise to catch everything up.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
To the best of my ability this week. I mean.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Ashley, are you good on the books?
I haven't received them yet. I
Okay.
should receive them, I think, on Thursday.
Okay. No problem. Kevin, how about you?
I tried to get them from a local mom and pop family Christian store.
Okay.
And I thought I was getting them last week. They called me today saying I will get them tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not too bad then. All right.
And
So
I have the Bible already. So.
yeah. Okay. Good. That's a good one. Huh? Awesome.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's right.
mean it. They weren't on Amazon Prime 2-day option. So one was, one wasn't. So if anyone was trying, I'm not sure if you were successful, but I waited and shouldn't have.
All right. No issues. This is your different assignments that you'll do. The online discussion boards are going to be 15%. Those will require a post and then a repost to someone else's information. Then you'll have a career interest paper that's due, a counseling discipline and specialties paper. The interview and counseling, it shouldn't say video, it should be audio. Video is going to be too bulky to work with online, so it's going to just be audio, which is a lot smaller of a file. Your end of term exam, and then of course classroom participation and preparation as you come to class. So that should all add up hopefully to 100%, and I think it does. We'll look at each of these a little closer here in just a second. Any initial questions on the assignments? Good. Okay. So your discussion boards, you have 6 total. There's 20 points each, 15 points for your original post, and then 5 points for the repost, meaning you interact with somebody else's discussion and then you comment on it. Okay. They cannot be turned in late. They either are a hit or a miss. Okay. Now, if you miss, here's what I recommend. You still submit. Okay. Because getting 59 points out of 100 versus 0, it still helps. So please, even if you miss the cutoff for whatever reason, please go ahead and submit so that you don't lose, you minimize the amount of points you lose. Okay. It's 100-word minimum per question. Sometimes there's 3 questions. Sometimes there's 2. I don't think there's any with 4, so that makes it either 3 or 200-word write-up. So, and the response post, again, cannot be turned in late. Want you to respond to at least 2 posts by classmates with a minimum of 100 words. I would try to, the temptation might be to just copy-paste, but I think with integrity, if you're going to respond to someone's post, you really kind of need to interact with whatever they said. So, that would be my encouragement to you there. And those are required a minimum of 3 days after the original posts were due. So, and that may take us a little bit. So I'll probably be easier on the grading until we get in the flow of things, because sometimes it's just a challenge for people with the technology and catching up and all that. So how many of you have other courses going on right now? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. So this is just one of several maybe that you have to have assignments with. So I feel your pain. I really do. How many of you are pretty good at using your calendars and staying on top of things? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. That's going to be important anyway for school in general. So, all right. So these are the discussion boards, and when they are due, you should have all these slides, by the way, on the GCD site for this class. So all this stuff is there for you to pull up and to use to enter into your calendar as to when, or however you do your assignments and stuff.
Did you put those up recently? Because lesson 1 was blank on my.
It wouldn't be on lesson 1. It's going to be in the info. It's just all the slides are together in one big group. So we'll just kind of go through, and when we stop, and then we'll pick up at the next place for that. So let me know if you cannot download the slides though and get copies of them. Okay. I can't see. This is the career interest paper. Okay. 15% of your grade. It's a three-page paper. Just kind of talking about the reasons you want or don't want to become a Christian counselor. Either one is fine, but I want you to just interact with the thought of what being a Christian counselor might mean for you. Tell how and why you made that decision or that consideration, and then kind of compare and contrast what you think it will take and which ones you think you need to develop as far as these the skill sets that you would like to have. Be Chicago manual style, and again 15% of your overall grade. So any questions on that one? Okay. All right. This is the interview and counseling video. So this is 10% of your grade. And instead of 30 minutes, that should read 15 minutes for your audio. We're not looking for anything huge, but I do want to get a flavor of how you handle talking with people, and then get your own perspectives on how that goes for you. Okay. And just whoever you interview, just to talk about their perspective on faith and the part it plays in their life. So it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be a believer again. They could be an atheist or an agnostic. They still have a perspective on faith and have an idea of the part that it plays in their life. So I'm not looking for any, a super Christian or anything here to give a great testimony, but really more just your interviewing skills about drawing out from that person their perspectives. So focus on building an alliance with them. That's the primary concern. Okay. And your final product will be your typed notes from the interview. So if you write those or type them when you're doing your interview, that's fine. I would probably take about 30 minutes minimum, though, to do this interview, so that you can get your 30 or 15 minutes of audio recording. Okay. I would like a 2-page theological reflection on how you would connect with this person then from a faith perspective. Okay. Whether they're a believer or not isn't the issue. Just want to see how you engage with someone's story and how you might connect with them. Okay. And again, that should say a 15-minute audio that you submit to me. So yeah, go ahead.
Focus on building an alliance and connecting with them. So does that mean it shouldn't be somebody we're close to as a friend or?
Well, I mean, that's okay. I would rather someone that's less known by you, if possible. If not, that's okay. When I was in seminary, this is a while ago, back in 1996, we had a class similar to this. It wasn't on counseling per se, but just connecting with people. And there was like 200 students in this class. And the question was asked, how many of you have an active relationship with a non-believer? And 3 people raised their hand. So that has always stuck with me, that oftentimes those who are in ministry and have a heart and a desire to connect with people actually aren't connecting with the people we most need to reach. So this is an effort to try to do that. So, if you got a more casual friend, that's what I would encourage, something like that. Try not to use your spouse or your best friend or, but do what you got to do to get it done. Okay.
Okay.
All right. This one is the classroom participation. No issues there. I think that's pretty straightforward. I think we missed some here. I think one that's not in there is your, there it is, end of term exam. Yeah. That's kind of an important one. So that's 30% of your grade. It'll be a 50 question multiple choice. Everything is from the lectures or the readings. It's open book and open notes. So I'm not looking for folks to memorize things. I'm looking for people to know things. That's really kind of the goal here. So any questions on those? No? Okay. Here's some assigned videos that you can watch online. Again, these are laid out in your syllabus. You can just connect with those. There's one on counseling techniques, basic counseling skills. There's one by Dan Siegel on nonverbal signals, and really kind of an important one, I think, in that 93% of communication is not through words, it's through nonverbals. So that's really kind of an insightful video. Tronic Still Face, I don't know if you've had the chance to see that. It is the interaction between about a 9-month, 10, 11-month-old baby with mom, who just all of a sudden in the middle of the video, this is on purpose, just goes still-faced and does not respond to the child. Just not doing anything bad, but just sitting there and not responding. And then to watch the reaction of that child. So that'll be an interesting video for you to watch, and we'll talk about that as we get further into the course. An EMDR report on what EMDR looks like. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It is a technique, an intervention and therapy model for trauma, which is what I spend most of my days doing, is working with combat trauma, physical and sexual abuse, child developmental trauma. And most of our practice, all of our therapists have been trained, obviously, because I'm a trainer. That's really an important concept for our therapists to have, especially a tool that they really need. And then, has anyone seen Phil Hansen, Embrace the Shake TED Talk? Okay. Yeah, if you haven't, I think that's a good video. I use that as sometimes with clients who are kind of stuck and don't really have a way forward, or at least don't think they have a way forward. So these are all things that you'll be able to watch on your own, and we'll include the discussion then in our meetings like this. All right, plagiarism. Don't do it. I will scan your papers with software, so it's not worth it. As far as late assignments, I just encourage you not to wait. Just coordinate in advance if something's going to happen, and just coordinate. That's all I ask. Just got done teaching 2 courses at GCD, and I had several, maybe a handful of students who just simply didn't coordinate. Their final paper or things like that, and I really can't help when people don't coordinate. So I don't want to do that, but I have to be fair to everybody at the same time. So there are extensions given, but generally they're for extreme circumstances. They're not so much for, hey, the dog ate my paper last night kind of stuff, though. So and if you need to be absent, just go ahead and coordinate with me through emails, or you can text me at my phone number there. That will work fine too. It may take me a bit sometimes to get back to you, and by a bit, it may take me up to 24 hours. So give yourself a little lead time if you can. My days are pretty long, to be honest. So. All right. So right now, and due to a death in our family, I needed to shift from tomorrow to today. How do Wednesdays work for this group?
Amazing.
They work for me.
It do not work for me, unfortunately. I have church responsibilities and
okay.
baseball
right.
coaching responsibilities.
Yeah. So what about Tuesdays? Are Tuesdays would work better?
Tuesdays work better for me, yes.
Okay.
Completely flexible. I can.
Okay. All right. Ashley and Kevin, Tuesdays are okay. All right. So shift these all back one day. So make the 8th, the 7th, the 14th, 21st, 28th. We'll go that route then. Okay. since you guys are here, you get the majority of the vote. So, all right. Again, all the lectures are mandatory, and again, we're recording this, so that shouldn't be an issue for anybody either. You should be able to. I'm not sure how you access that yet. I will see how that works when we get to the end of this one. So I may utilize you to help me on that. So, all right. Again, all absences, late papers must be approved in advance. That's really important. Sick really is just not a good excuse. I get that we get sick, and if you're, truly sick, I got it. Let me know, and we'll deal with it. So, late papers are automatically a 1-letter grade drop, and again, submit things regardless. Okay, get those extra points. I get life happens. I was in seminary. I remember one of my professors telling me, if you're getting an A in this class, you might be in sin. Yeah, it's like, well, that's actually a pretty good comment, and so what he meant by that was the that maybe if you have a family and you got 4 kids like Dawn, and you've got a lot of life going on already, that you may not have the time to put into, 4 hours into a paper. You only have 2, and that's the best you can do. So, do the best you can under your circumstances. So, certainly understand that. That's it. Joni, or have you joined us, Joni?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for you. There you are. All right. How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
Sorry, I'm a bit late. I was thinking our time, but y'all.
Well, we have it's all right. Not a problem. So, all right, we're just working through the different things here that we need to talk about. So, have you been able to access things online? The syllabus and PowerPoint slides and all that?
I didn't see the PowerPoint slides. I did see the syllabus. I went in and looked on the lessons yesterday, but I didn't see anything unless you updated them today.
It's in the info section. It's not on the lessons because I have just one massive PowerPoint file that has all the slides in it, so it'll be under the info section of the course rather than the lesson.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Any other questions on any of this so far? No, we good? Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started here. So as we think about Christian counseling, it's not something that's been around for a super long time. It's really kind of relatively new compared to a lot of other modalities that have been around for some for over 100 years or so. So Jay Adams and Gary Collins were prominent in the 70s and the 80s. They probably took the lead on a lot of these things that we're going to talk about and have developed to this point in our culture. Adams was the leader of the biblical counseling movement, which is different than Christian counseling. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But he was really strongly critical of Freud and Rogers. And he wrote the Competent to Counsel. That was one of the first books that he wrote. And mental illness is really kind of a misnomer in his eyes, that all mental illness can be traced back to sin, which I wouldn't disagree with, particularly original sin. I think, if you're looking at it through that lens, then yes, I would say all mental illness can be traced back to sin. Does that mean that everything we experience in the counseling room is necessarily a result of sin? And, you could make a case for it. That might be a little too narrow of a view, but the primary role of the counselor then is to kind of confront the sin struggle of our client. That's what Adams would say. And it's often referred to as nouthetic counseling, meaning to verbally confront. Noutheto is kind of that idea. And it's very heavy on the law. It's very light on the gospel. So as you might imagine, it has a rigidity to it as far as a place when you are working with people. The word nouthetio occurs 8 times in the New Testament. Okay. And it's interesting, though, that the Greek cognates for encouragement and comfort, though, occur over 130 times. But those aren't talked about by Jay Adams. So just something to think about and keep in mind as you go through this. Okay. Gary Collins, who also wrote, this is your book that you'll be getting if you don't have it already. Anybody see that? It's very thin. You should be able to read it in a couple nights. So about 48 hours, maybe. So, and we aren't looking at all of that. We're really, as far as for this course, we're really only looking at maybe the first 80, 90, 100 pages. So we're not getting into the rest of that. The rest of the book is going to be used for other types of other courses that we will have if you're in the counseling program. So Collins was also pretty critical of Freud and Rogers and the behaviorists, those who focused on just behavior as a focus. So, for instance, if you're aware of the kids who are on the spectrum with autism, for instance, one of the common treatments for autism is what we call an ABA platform, applied behavioral analysis. And it's very much focused on behavior, as the name indicates. But there's very little focused on all the other parts that are part of what makes kids up today. The emotions and all those somatic symptoms that might be going on in their bodies, things like that. So he was calling for a much greater integration of Christianity and psychology. Especially where they held common ground. Now, we don't always hold common ground with psychology, especially from a faith perspective. But I think it's fair to say that truth can be found everywhere in nature. Theologically, we would call that natural revelation. And in the Bible, which specifically we would refer to as special revelation. So I think in those places, we can always find truth. We may differ on how to apply it to people's lives, which is okay. So science is a process we use to understand nature, whereas theology is that process we use to understand Scripture or the Bible. Okay. Anybody familiar with Gary Collins at all? No? Okay. Yeah, he's pretty prevalent in the Christian counseling realm. So if you don't know him, you will probably come to know him. He also started the American Association of Christian Counselors. So that's just a pretty big Christian counseling group. I think it's like 50,000 members. So it's pretty significant. Okay. All right. Others followed these two, though. Bruce Narramore and Archibald Hart, they're pretty well known and helped to form Christian doctoral programs earlier on. A lot of programs just did not have Christian counseling as a focus. So now you see quite a few of those. This one would be an example of that that's developing, the one with GCD. The hope is at some point this would also lead to a Master of Arts in Counseling at GCD at some point in the future. So that is one of the goals, is that we would continue to develop this into higher levels. I think it's also already a part of the MDiv program. To some degree. There's some of the counseling courses that are a part of that. So Larry Crabb, anybody heard of him? No? Okay. Well, he and his crew, they started writing a lot of articles integrating Christianity and psychology. They were some of the front runners in some of these areas. Minirth and Meyer clinics, Robert McGee, they all founded inpatient clinics. The problem was that those kind of fell apart when managed care came into existence through insurance companies. And that kind of, they financially could not make it at that point. So they kind of went away. But they were some of the premier folks working with clients from a Christian perspective. And then, of course, you had some other folks, James Dobson, most people have heard of him, and then M. Scott Peck, who is a little more on the fringes of Christian counseling with some of his perspectives, but nonetheless, kind of an important person in the overall scheme of things. So any thoughts on these folks? How many have heard of Dobson? I'm sure. James Dobson, Focus on the Family. Okay. Very good. All right. So other early professional organizations, the Christian Association for Psychological Studies, the Association for Biblical Counseling, that is still around. The NANC for Nouthetic Counselors, I'm pretty sure that's around. The AAPC, that's still around. But the biggest one, though, is what Gary Collins formed with the American Association of Christian Counselors. And currently, the president is Tim Collins, who is another pretty prevalent Christian counselor today. And what you'll find in across the country, really, but no, I can't say that necessarily. It definitely across the country, but in all types of flavors and persuasions of denominations, from high church to low church, you will find counseling programs becoming more and more prevalent in church life. There are many pockets out there, though, who still would kind of poo-poo any type of psychology application within counseling, that somehow that is unbiblical, that it is not relevant nor wanted nor prescribed by Scripture. Okay, so there are those folks out there who think that way. Okay. Some of the early concerns that still exist about Christian counseling is the lack of theological depth of the clinicians. So let's say all 5 of you wanted to become Christian counselors. Out of the 5 of you, probably less than 1 would actually have theological training to go along with the Christian counseling training. Okay, so it's not uncommon for people as Christian counselors to not really have any formal theological training, like an MDiv or anything like that. Okay, so they're very well meaning, but at the same time they tend to be undertrained from theological perspectives. So one of the reasons I think this is so excellent that GCD is moving in this direction is because it's beginning to combine theology and psychology in a program like this, and that's pretty important, I think. Here's what I'll tell you: you're gonna have a huge impact in the culture if you are able to combine theology and psychology. There are people out there who are hurting for theological answers as much as they're hurting for good psychological counseling. And if you can combine those, you're going to do very, very well. Okay. Very often they focused on pragmatic concerns less on theology. It does matter what Scripture says and how it guides our approach to life. So it matters how I drive down the street in Fayetteville on the way to work in the morning. It's not just psychology that's at work, it's my theology that's at work too. If I use 5 fingers or 1 finger, right? It makes a difference in how I approach the other people that are driving around me. So particularly the one that cuts me off in traffic, right? So kind of an important thing for us. Okay. Let's see, what else? Current trends, the Christian counseling versus biblical counseling. Biblical counseling, a little more, I say rigid, but I don't mean that in the pejorative sense, but more narrowly defined maybe is a better way to say it, okay? Whereas Christian counseling is a little more broad, a little more integrative between psychology and theology. There's a growing openness to more psychopharmacological treatments using medications as a part of treatment. I think sometimes that can be overused, especially in the area that I currently work with trauma. A lot of psychotropics are being used as a way of managing clients' behaviors and emotions and things like that. So not always the best approach. You see this a lot in the military. If you have any type of military perspective from your family of origin and in your life, you'll see a lot of times in the military where they throw meds at soldiers as a way of managing their problems. And then when the soldier can't perform, they get exited from the military. You see this in a lot of professions, but it's more prevalent there because it's one of the larger ones. So any thoughts on that as far as using drugs to manage some of these things? What's your any views on that?
Well, I just finished the Christian mentoring and coaching course with Carlos Sereno, and Gary Collins' book was the required reading, and it was on Christian coaching.
Mm-hmm.
He did a large chapter on that, as far as how hard it's been to actually get Christian counseling pretty much to be monitored in a perspective that there is no real monitoring authority or board, and
no licensure
and no requiring of CEA hours. And, it's been a very interesting perspective that it's turned more into a topic of life coaching.
Yeah.
And life mentoring versus counseling.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see what your thoughts are at a later date if we get into that topic. And
sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point of discussion for sure.
How to keep yourself safe, essentially, because there's not a good monitoring board. You have a lot of the same bylaws as far as reporting for sexual abuse and drug abuse.
Yeah.
But yet we're not monitored at the same level. And many of the states are lacking in pay to grade for that.
Sure.
But the largest states, believe it or not, have the largest drug populations. So I look at the demographics as far as where we live in drug population, and the demographic is outstanding as far as where some of our students live, and the impact of how fast Christian mentoring is growing. So Gary Collins' book is phenomenal on that.
Yeah.
And it's life-changing for me. It really streamlined my objective of wanting to stay in this course.
Yeah. Well, good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Other thoughts on that as far as mentoring, life coaching / therapy or counseling?
Not so much on life coaching or Christian coaching, but kind of more on the medications as we look at that.
Right.
My father, older brother, both dealing with depression and taking medications. I guess the question is medication pushed because it's easy? Is it pushed because the results? What's kind of the agenda that's kind of pushing that pharmacological?
Yeah. Well, probably every person you ask, you'd get a different answer. I think some of the main themes out there, one is, it's talked about as being pushed by drug companies as solutions. We very much have a medical model approach to mental health in our country, meaning we use meds as a way of managing behavior and outcomes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if we have pain, you take Tylenol, you take, the harder stuff, the narcotics, as a way of managing the pain. That's just a typical response in our culture. In many cultures, they don't have medicine at all. They have no mental health or behavioral health system set up. So the idea of meds is just not there at all. And you have everywhere in between. Other theories on that, just the biblical counseling approach. We don't use medicine. It's a sin problem. And if you just fix your sin, you wouldn't be depressed, kind of idea. Is there some truth to that? Yeah, there probably is some truth to that. But is it an absolute truth? I don't think so. I think the fallenness of creation taints all areas of our world and our universe. So I would expect it biologically. I would expect the fallenness to be evident in our psychological approaches, you name it. I think you see it everywhere. So I don't think there's one answer to that, honestly. But do medicines help people? Absolutely. I've watched it happen. Can it smooth out the road enough where talk therapy and some of these other techniques that we often use with hurting people can really work? Absolutely. I've watched people, come off of their meds, their prescribed meds, because they were getting better through therapy and they didn't need it anymore. PTSD being one of those examples. I get to see that quite a bit in what I do. So I don't think meds generally are a long-term solution. They're a short-term solution. One of the other problems, though, is that when you have certain types of disorders, personality disorders in particular, like borderline personality disorder or bipolar, some of those types of things, narcissism, all those different ones, those oftentimes are only helped through medicine. Nobody has a lot of positive change with any of those personality disorders. They're very difficult to work with. So, any other thoughts on this? Okay. There's a growing focus in the Christian realms on addictions, cross-cultural areas, crisis, grief, marriage, family, military, Christian sex therapy. One of our therapists that works in my business is working on becoming a Christian sex therapist. She just received her full licensed marriage and family therapist credentials. So that's something that she really wants to be able to apply it towards, is the sex therapy piece. A lot of brokenness in the sex realm particularly within the church. It's pretty profound. We cover it up a lot, but it is pretty significant. So, I was just thinking, Corey, if you're going to become a pastor, you probably already know that what you're seeing is there's a lot of brokenness around those issues within the church. Excuse me. Other current challenges, a lot of economic challenges from managed care. Part of the reason, again, that we set up a counselors who are Christians approach is that it's really important to have an income in a business, or you're not going to stay around very long, right? So our therapists obviously have to be licensed, but then they have to go another layer and they have to be credentialed with insurance companies in order to be able to get reimbursed for the services that they provide for clients. If you're not credentialed, you can't get reimbursed for those services. You're left to either do it pro bono or get cash pay from your client. And a lot of clients don't have the resources to do cash pay. That's just the reality of it. We charge typically $100 for a session. So if you were going to do counseling, marriage counseling for 8 weeks, that's quite a bit of money. That's almost $1,000. There's not too many families in today's economy that can pay that kind of cash out of pocket to get help. So a lot of people rely on insurance to do that. And if the Christian counseling, which they can, but if they don't get credentialed with insurance providers, they're not going to get reimbursed. So that's a huge challenge to Christian counseling. What that takes, though, is people who are licensed. If people aren't licensed, they're not going to get paneled with insurance companies. So any thoughts on that? How familiar are you with the insurance realm of things?
I've gone pretty deep with it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So then you have some understanding of what that looks like then and how important that is. And if you were to have gotten services, paid out of your pocket, think of the cost. Now, for some, if they have a really high deductible, it's not much of an advantage. That's one of the real problems people struggle with now, as far as providing services, or getting services, I should say. The need for insurance credentialing for remuneration. Reimbursement rates are often low. They're really not high enough to support a business, depending on where you're at. And the paperwork admin needs are often significant within a counseling practice at large. We have probably, let's see, three full-time workers and probably another 3 or 4 part-time workers in our practice to support the 25 therapists that we have.
Wow.
So there, it takes a lot of, and the sad part is that the admin folks, as important as they are to the whole process working, they don't earn money for the practice. The earned money only comes through therapy. So that becomes a challenge sometimes as to how businesses can remain afloat, particularly good Christian counseling. The number of sessions can often be limited by insurance even. And kind of alluded to this, the Christian therapist or a therapist who is Christian perspective is really kind of important. So as a pastor and as a therapist, I have a lot of leeway with folks who come into me to introduce theological concepts, particularly Christian concepts, to those who have come from really broken Christian homes. It's a great opportunity to kind of invest in their faith development as a part of their counseling process. So another problem is the availability of Christian-oriented counseling. Not too many churches have the size and structure to support a Christian counseling firm or a perspective that they allow for their parishioners, the people who attend. I'm assuming most of you go to church. How many of your churches have a counseling program? One? Okay. So not many. I know Manna does, which is associated with GCD, but most churches just don't have the size and facilities to offer counseling. They might offer some pastoral counseling, but most pastors get pretty well stuck when persons come in with depression, they come in with personality disorders, they come in with trauma, all those types of things. They don't really have the training to deal with those things. So that's usually going to be a problem in most areas. There's a growing number, though, of accredited Christian programs that are regularly accepted by state licensing boards. So just to name a few, Liberty University, if you've heard of that. There's Regent University out of Virginia Beach. And there's a lot more. But those are programs whose counseling curriculum meets the standards for accreditation by CACREP, it's called, which is the kind of the LPC counseling accreditation company, and COAMFTE, which is the marriage and family accreditation program. So some of these schools are coming online and meeting some of the toughest standards to get licensed for their students, which is a good thing. That would be our hope for GCD at some point, that we have a master's program, like I said, in counseling. So that would meet those standards. So any thoughts on that?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Do all of them require a 3,000 hour practicum, clinician study underneath a license before they consider you most able in private practice?
Right. Well, you'll find that there's a number of things that affect this. Is one, you have the CACREP standards and the COAMFTE standards, which are pretty standard for every school. But then your state licensing board then has a requirement that they put on it as well. So
and you have to do both, right? So just because let's say you go to a Liberty University and finish a master's, you still have to register with the state of Texas, and that registration will require dual clinician hours, correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, to a degree, that is correct. What you want to do is you definitely want to be concerned with matching up your master's degree with the state that you want to be licensed in. Okay. Now, most states accept COAMFTE and CACREP type programs that are accredited by them. Okay. But how would I say it? The states, as far as what hours you need to get licensed, is where there's a lot of variability.
That's
So
what
if
I'm
I
saying.
want to,
What determines that? Because I've met people who are in private practice who aren't licensed through the state.
well, if they're doing it in a church realm, that's different because it's under the guise of theology, of church religious freedom. If they're outside the church, then they have to have a license.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the difference. And this goes back to one of your original statements: is how do people get licensed, and who's out there practicing, and how competent are they to practice?
Private practice versus working underneath, which
Yeah.
was why I took mine a step further outside of divinity.
Yes.
Instead
Yeah.
of only staying within a church where I'm wanting to be outside of the church. Well, not outside of the church, always in Christian practice, but
Yes.
larger capability of realm to be able to study in different fields.
Yeah.
So this was a realization I had this year. I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate.
No. These are great questions
I've been
because
dying to know.
this is exactly some of the stuff that comes up. And if we don't prepare for it, it's going to eat us up because you won't be successful, and you'll get pretty stymied trying to do this process. So, and I'm always available to talk about these things and help people work through them. So it's an important part of the process for me. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. There's a lot of LGBTQ plus challenges that are out there. The original focus in working with these population groups was basically on holiness theology. You just need to be pure and stop doing these things. Okay. One of the other challenges that comes up with internships that accept Christian beliefs. A lot of the places that offer internships that you need if you're getting your master's degree includes not real, almost denying your Christian beliefs, which is a problem. So there's been this growing effort to silence Christian perspectives and beliefs as a part of the counseling programs in general, which is another reason why I designed the business I have around a student internship program that allows interns to come to our practice and collect the hours they need in often working right alongside Christian therapists to get their degrees. There's often in this population group, LGBTQs, where routinely Christian research is dismissed, and that's not good. On the other side of that, how is the church handling these enduring conditions? Because this is a part of our culture and our society, and typically the church is almost always, I would say, the last to adjust to culture. And I'm not saying that in a critical way of the church, but faith always seems to follow everything else. It rarely leads in culture. If you want to see the canaries in the mine for culture, is not Christianity. It's everything up. Science and arts always are the canaries in the mine. You see where that's going, you'll see where the church is going to be able to respond. The sexual identity therapy movement was another challenge, and it kind of upholds the secular values of self-determination and congruence for folks who are struggling with gender identity and those types of issues. And this is a real challenge within our culture, especially within the church, which is just not done well in responding. Just saying something's wrong is not going to take you very far in helping people. So, any thoughts on this? I know this is an area that's been talked about quite a bit over the last couple of years in our culture. But
Google Rise of the Knowns.
What's that?
Google Rise of the Knowns. NONES.
Yeah.
I'm doing a tremendous study on it. This is my passion.
Yeah, cool. All right. That's a huge area, and we need people who are willing to risk getting in the mix of this. We really do. Yep. It's an important area.
It's huge, and it's like this crazy passion. If you start connecting the Generation IY with the rise in the knowns community and the response of the church, you start to see this amazing mind connection happen with why we have a decline of the generation and why we're the largest pharmaceutical, largest obese. I mean, I could do, I
Crazy.
get on a platform. Praise God, I could do it forever.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I have dedicated 23 years to this.
Awesome. Very good.
Of research.
Yep. Areas of agreement between biblical counseling and Christian counseling. They are not the same. It's important to understand that they are different. Both generally are conservative and believe in the tenets of the Christian faith. That's pretty much a given. Both care for hurting people. Okay. Both affirm the practice of psychology to a degree. Both agree that secular psychology gets things wrong. It's a pretty important concept. That psychology doesn't have a lot of things right. There's some basic truths that they're missing in their approach. And both agree that not all problems are counseling problems. Some are definitely faith-based problems. And of course, that's where pastoral or Christian counseling and biblical counseling can be so important. So, okay. These are different types. This captures most, maybe not all, of the different types of therapist you might be or clinician you might be. And this is important to know even, as pastor of a church or someone who's working in some organization, what type of clinician would I send and refer someone to? And a marriage and family therapist is one of those. They primarily focus on family-related issues. You have the clinical social workers. They've been around for quite some time. They're probably the oldest of all in many ways, outside of psychologists and psychiatrists. They're pretty prevalent. They often work in community-type settings. When someone says they're a social worker, they're definitely working in social realms to solve problems. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily therapists, though. You can have social workers who have no clinical experience. So it really depends on the state that you're in and the different types of certification or licensure options they have for some of these social work programs. LPC is pretty common. That's in many states, if not all, licensed professional counselor. And all of these require a master's degree as a part of the licensing process. Okay. You have your LCASs. These can be called different things in different states, by the way. So you might, in Ohio, for instance, a licensed clinical social worker would be a licensed independent social worker, an LISW. Okay. If you go to South Carolina, an LPC would still be understood, but not, they might ask, well, are you independent or are you a provisionally licensed LPC? So almost all of these also have a provisional license state in which you maybe have finished your degree, but then how would I say it? But then you haven't completed all your hours that you need doing supervised care of people to get your full license. And that's where these thousands of hours that you talked about, Dawn, often play in. So to become a marriage and family therapist in North Carolina is 1,500 supervised hours. To become a LPC is 2,000 hours in North Carolina. And LCAS is 4,000 to 6,000 supervised hours in North Carolina. So you can see that just getting your degree doesn't get you necessarily where you want to be. You got pastoral counselors. Those are usually certified. They're not licensed in North Carolina anyway, because the pastor is typically licensed already. So that's usually a certification process for them. You have psychologists, what most of us know about. School counselors is pretty prominent in most states. You have the LPA, a licensed psychologist assistant, who can only work under the care supervision of a licensed psychologist. They still have a license, but they cannot do their job without being supervised by a psychologist. And then, of course, you have Christian coaching or life coaching that is becoming more and more prevalent, and I think is a great addition to lay workers within the church. Folks who can get trained don't need to be licensed. That can be great help to people who don't have medical diagnoses that they need counseling for. There's a lot of people just struggling with, hey, how do I parent my kids? How do I get along in my marriage? Those types of things. They don't necessarily have a medical necessity that has to be diagnosed. Okay. Any thoughts on these? Which ones of these have you heard about or know of?
I've been studying all of them.
Okay, you know these. How about the rest of you?
You know what? I struggle with all these hours, and so I almost went the route of taking this into human resources.
Okay.
Because of the hour requirements, there is another additional test that you can take for an SHRM, which I'm sure you've heard of, senior human resource management. Because the only challenge with that is you're in senior human resource management, unless you're in a nonprofit, you really can't discuss Christian.
Yeah, right.
Or political background. So I've struggled. I mean, I've really struggled with the decision of staying within the ministry realm.
Yeah.
Suffering to the 3,000 hours of not getting paid at 50 years old or 48 years old.
That's a tough one.
You know, versus hopping into a major corporation and the average starting pay, for an SHRM, if you finish the Road of Divinity, it's 90 to 100,000, and it's a standardized test that you can take, and it takes about 5 months of studying. So, I mean, I'll be honest, Lord guide me,
Yeah.
I got 23 years of passion in people, but here's where it is right there.
Yeah. Well, you have the practical needs of income.
Yeah.
That's
Don't
just,
quit your day job.
What's that?
Don't quit your day job anytime.
No. Do not do that, for crying out loud. Yeah. Kevin, how about you? Have you heard of any of these different types of therapists?
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
All of them? Okay.
At some level or another.
Okay. Corey or Johnny? Joni or Johnny? Johnny? Joni? Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had it off. It's Joni.
Joni,
Right, Joni.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard of pretty much, for the most part, most of them, the majority of them.
Okay. All right. Good. Corey?
Yeah, heard of most of them. I think the coaching is kind of the one thing that I didn't quite know was a was a focused kind of specialty now. So that's one of the things that I'll be interested in learning the differences between those. Yeah,
absolutely. And you see the coaching coming up a lot in church settings, quite a bit. Because it's free to talk about Christian perspectives based on what the client would like to talk about. So
it's big in the church that I attend. We do a lot of pastoral care, and I was on staff with the church for 5 years, and support and helping with the pastoral care.
Sure.
But they do have a lot of Christian coaching classes and certifications that you can take in our area that
awesome
enable the pastors to free up, their availability for the need.
Yeah. And it's pretty overwhelming. Now, I mean, a lot of brokenness comes to churches. We've been teaching at GCD for 4 or 5 years now, my wife and I. And we teach marriage and family is one of our courses. And there's only been 2 students out of all those years who did not come from a broken family, divorce, family, which is pretty profound when you think about that. I mean, you're talking 80 out of 80 students, 78 came from divorced homes. That's pretty significant, So just something to keep in mind, that the church, as it should, brings brokenness to itself. And we need good care there to help take care of it. So, all right. We'll look at a couple of these, and then we'll stop for the night. So marriage and family therapist, again, requires a master's degree. They specialize in seeing couples and families. I do that as well, but I primarily focus on trauma within families. Oftentimes they can work though with family members individually. That's fine too. But the mental health issues generally are handled within the context of family and relationship. So the therapy is often designed to be short-term, although I've got some clients right now I've been seeing for over 3 years. They're very complex trauma clients, and so it takes a while, for them to get to a good place. The licensure requirements in North Carolina, just by example, 1,500 hours of direct counseling, 200 supervision hours, okay, which is pretty significant. So if you're going and becoming a marriage and family therapist, every 7.5 clients you see, you have to have an hour of supervision, which is pretty significant. Then you think about the cost of that, because those supervision hours at this point have to be paid. You have to have a therapist, a supervisor, who can provide that, and they usually have a fee for their supervision. So it can be quite expensive when you consider that supervision costs around $40 to $100 per hour. So you can do the math and figure out how much more that costs beyond your degree to get your license. Okay. Masters of Social Work to become a LCSW. Again, they can do individual couples therapy. They can do a lot of clinical work. Most often they're in public service and do case management. Most counties have what we call a Department of Social Services. If you haven't been or aren't aware of that, kids who need to be taken out of homes, or there's neglect, abuse, all kinds of things. That's usually where you're going to interact with a lot of social workers. You do see them out there though in private practice and doing clinical work, which is pretty cool. There's within North Carolina here, again, you have a CMSW, which is a master's degree. You have a clinical social worker, also a master's degree. You have a certified social worker, which is a bachelor's degree. Okay. And typically you're going to be working within a government system with these types of degrees very often. It's 2 years of supervised experience for a social worker. You have to pass your national exam, and you have 3,000 hours of direct contact with clients. Not necessarily counseling, but full-time work pretty much. So, this is LPCs, licensed professional counselors. Again, you have to have a master's degree. They have a little more variability maybe in the people that they serve, not so much focused on families or marriages or those types of things, but individuals. They can practice independently. 2,000 direct counseling hours and 100 hours of supervision. The difference here with LPCs is that all starts after you finish your degree and you pass your exam. So you're talking a minimum of 2 years to get your license after you pass your exam and finish your degree. So this is not a slow process or not a fast process, I should say, to become a licensed therapist of any type. You're looking at a 4-year degree undergrad, a 2-year degree minimum for a master's degree, and then a couple years before you can get your full license. So from flash to bang out of high school, you're talking 8-9 years of school and work to become a full licensed therapist. And that's not counting if you want to go on and become specialized in some area. So it's quite the journey. Okay. LCASs, these are clinical addiction specialists. They work with those with addictions and drug problems. They have a really thorough understanding of how drugs affect brains and causes and risk factors and all that stuff. Often group therapy is the primary means of therapy for LCASs. I have several LCASs as part of our practice who we refer our clients who have substance abuse issues to get care. Really valuable people. And look at the requirements though, 400 hours or 4,000 hours of working with clients. You know, you're talking 3 to 4 years being supervised in order to become an LCAS in the state of North Carolina. And then they have to have 180 hours of substance use disorder training in addition to all that other stuff and their degree. So pretty long haul for if you want to become an LCAS. So pastoral counseling, this is just within North Carolina. Again, this isn't necessarily saying this is across the nation, but to become a certified pastoral counseling person, you need to be a licensed ordained pastor, 1,370 hours of counseling, 250 hours of supervision, 3 years as a full-time pastor. So that's a pretty good chunk of time there to become this. Okay? And then you could also be a counseling associate. So again, you still have to be licensed, but the numbers are significantly less for that person. So, and I tell you, one of the greatest things I think that's of really important use in our culture is pastors who are trained clinicians. It is a huge asset to the church at large. Very, very important. So in the military, you can actually become what they call a family life chaplain. So at a certain point in your career, you have the opportunity to go get a master's degree in counseling, and then you can go back out into the military to some base somewhere and be a therapist who is also a pastor. So pretty important combination there. Okay. Let me see what we got here. Psychologists and psychological associates. Nothing real serious here. Most of you know you have to have a PhD to become a psychologist. So you can either be a PsyD or a psychologist. And I think that's where we stop for the night. The Christian coaching, I think most of you know a little bit about that. Becoming more and more popular, especially through schools like Liberty and Regent and some of those places. So I think that's a good thing. So, well, we will stop there. Any thoughts or questions for this week? Okay. Don't forget to take a look at your syllabus and kind of keep up with your assignments and stuff. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any problems, just shoot me an email or a text on my phone, and we'll get you the answers you need. So, okay.
The discussion boards, will those be due this Friday, or is that?
No, I think the first one is next week.
Okay.
I think so. I think it's the 11th and then the 13th. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but
okay.
Well, let me go back up here quick. Yeah, there we go. So the 10th. So all right. It is this Friday, isn't it? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Okay.
I think the discussion is supposed to open up tonight or tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow night. Yeah. Okay. And like I said, I'll catch you some grace for everybody, for this first week because of just getting started and all that. It's not always that simple. So, but if you have any problems, let me know. Okay.
You got to have the book to answer the questions. So.
Well, that's true. But I can send out the questions, but you don't have the reading that you can do. So thus
it is the 35 pages.
Yeah. Thus the grace. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I missed this section when y'all discussed it.
Right.
So from what I'm gathering of what everyone's saying right now, discussion boards will not be open until Wednesday, and then they're due on the Friday?
Correct. You have like 3 days, 2 days, Wednesday. I can't pull up I can't pull it up on the computer right now because I have the Zoom going, but yeah, it's due on the 10th, which is Friday.
And that's how they'll be opened each week, each week they'll be open on the Wednesday, or will
No,
we
no,
have-
no. I think they're open. They're open on Saturday. It's just this first week. It's only open on Wednesday.
Great, thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So,
Yes.
and again, there's no the grace for the first week is for sure because of all these nuances. So, if you can't get your books, let me know though. That's an important thing. We'll catch you up. All
It's
right.
only the 2 books, correct?
Yep. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Okay. Again, if you think of anything, just shoot me an email and we'll get you the answers. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, you all have a great night. God bless.
Thank you, you too.
Thank
All
you,
right.
too.
Bye-bye.